All right, hello, Lori. Let's dive in because these usually take some time. Okay, you have a splay chart. So it means that you've got stuff kind of all over the place, which is very aligned to having a lot of Gemini energy as well. But you do have a stellium, like you've got a lot of Gemini stuff. It's also a lot of 12th house stuff, right? Which means that yes, you're multi-interested, multi-talented, sometimes easily distracted, but you do have the ability to focus, not just the ability, but it's in your chart, like focusing in, honing on something while also being interested in a lot of things. That's the overall pattern of your chart. Now, you know you're a Gemini sun and Aries moon, Gemini rising. And I know you're familiar with those archetypes. So what's important here is that your Gemini sun's at the 14th degree. So then my question for you is, what happened when you were 14? Did you move? Did your parents divorce? Did you meet someone new who changed your life? Generally the degree of our sun sign signifies a very pivotal year in our lives. And a lot of times our pivotal years, I can only speak from experience, having, experienced my first pivotal year, that mine was rough. A lot of people's are rough, not everyone's. But just think back to being 14. Of course, being 14 is rough, just in general. Maybe not quite as bad as 13. 13, thank God we don't have to be 13 again. But yeah, 14, think back to what was going on in your life at that point in time, and how might that be a pivotal time, and reflecting on it through that lens, what more could you learn about yourself? Now, what's interesting as well is that these repeat every 30 years, because in every of the 12 segments of an astrology chart, we work with the degrees 0 to 29. So 30 degrees in total, but 0 to 29. So every time we reach 30, there's a refresh to certain theories that we work with in astrology. So with this theory, when you are 44, that is when you will experience your second pivotal year. So something to keep in mind also, just as a caveat, if 14 was like very, very tough for you, I don't have the field research from my own life, but I just feel like logically our second pivotal year should not be as hard as our first, unless between those 30 years, we didn't really do anything to better ourselves or understand ourselves, right? So generally, people who are going to get chart readings, they've done that. So I have faith that we all will experience better second pivotal years than first. But once again, I don't know, you might have had a really great 14th year of your life. Your Gemini sun is in the 12th house. And I love that you have a lot of 12th house placements, because death is something that the 12th house covers. Now, you'll hear people talk about the 8th house being about death, and it is, but it's more like the death of your family members and what you will inherit from them. It's also authority and your own personal transformation. So it's death, honestly, a little bit more as a metaphor, though we can definitely find literal death in the 8th house. What we see in the 12th house is also literal and metaphorical death, but it's more so connected to the other side. Whatever you think happens after death, it's connected to ghosts and spirits and spirituality, and just understanding that the world is like a little bit more liminal than we can experience at this time. So, and plus, okay, never mind. Different chart. Someone else that I did had a midheaven in Scorpio, and I was like, do you work with dead people? But that's not your chart. We'll talk about the 10th house, but let's talk about your, I'm getting ahead of myself. The one note I wrote down for having a Gemini sun in the 12th house is there's a secret side of yourself. Gemini is very adaptable. It's very easy for Gemini to adapt to the situation that they're in, which some people don't like, and I think they're honestly just jealous, because being able to adapt to situations is a serious survival skill. Like, I'm not going to act the same way in front of someone's dad as I do in front of, you know, my best friend, right? That's not okay. And that's like, we know that that separation exists and it exists for a good reason. And yet people still don't like that Gemini can turn on the glitz and glamour over here, but can get, you know, weird and dorky over here, you know? Anyway, with the 12th house energy, there's secrecy in the 12th house. There's also fear. There's also fear. And so there's a secret side of yourself. You know, whether when you were younger, the secret side of yourself was a little bit more tormented. Now I feel like it's more so like a sense of safety. You know, I think that this can be a very healthy thing. Like there's just a part of yourself that's just for you. And it's worth noting that the sun is the foundation. The sun is the foundation of the building. They're building a house next door. They're almost done with it, but they've been doing it for months. So building metaphors are what I've been working with a lot. But the foundation, I could see, you know, they took down the house. Well, you know, they left most of the foundation up and extended the foundation. So it went from being this 1-bedroom home to now this 2-bedroom home that extended out farther. And so the foundation grew, but I could tell that the foundation was for a house, right? And so then you can put other stuff on it. You can make it look all pretty. You can use the same foundation for a couple houses, but dress up the outside, make it look different. That outside, the panels, the windows, all that stuff. Well, maybe not the windows. That's probably part of the foundation. All that stuff is your rising sign. So it's what you see, you know, and it's the differences we see between one another, you know. So our sun sign, it's like, is this a 1-bedroom or, you know, single-story house, or is this going to be a skyscraper, right? That's what the sun sign is. It's the foundation of the building. So with a Gemini sun in the 12th house, your foundation is, you know, that secret side of yourself, being curious, being communicative, learning, you know. Gemini, I just feel like is just like out there exploring, wanting to touch everything and talk to everyone and do stuff and getting excited, just exploring. Gemini is such a little explorer, and so that's your foundation. Okay, your moon is in Aries in the 11th house. So Aries in the 11th house. Aries moons are tough. You've heard me talk about them on TikTok. Aries moons are tough because you get consumed in whatever emotion you're feeling. And, you know, particularly Aries moons tend to be more angry. They tend to be more angry and tend to be quick to anger, you know, especially if you have anxiety, right? Because anger is also a symptom of anxiety. But you get through those emotions quickly. So you might blow up. You're, you know, like in Hercules when Hades' hair just becomes very vibrant red flames, but then it's over. that's an Aries moon. What else? I was going to say something else, but I got distracted talking about Hercules. So I'll just move on to the next thing, and if it comes back, it comes back. As far as being in the 11th house, community is like very important for you. Having a sense of community is extremely important for you. Our moon sign is our reaction to the world. And so this is your knee-jerk reaction. You don't think about it, okay? Could be, you know, instincts and intuition are found here because those two things can come without thinking as well. And so doing things for the betterment of the collective, maybe not like the global collective, but like whatever group, community you are in at that time, that's what you want to fight for first and foremost, you know? Yeah, but you do process emotions very quickly. They come up, you move them out. They come up, you move them out. So, you know, as far as having an Aries moon goes, it's just about, you know, learning to channel the anger when it does come up, because anger can be destructive. But yeah, I mean, I already said it, but the plus side of having an Aries moon is you get over shit quickly. And as someone with a Scorpio moon, who literally will never get over anything, I was just kidding, I have worked on that. I'm definitely envious of the Aries moon's ability to just instantly process stuff. Maybe not like fully process it, but enough to be like, oh, okay, and I'm done with that emotion. We're moving on. So Gemini rising, you know, we're going to be talking about Gemini a lot. So Gemini, as far as your rising sign, your physical appearance, you know, what the outside of the building that is you, they tend to have cute features. But what I've noticed mostly with Gemini risings is their style will change drastically throughout their lives. You know, two iconic Gemini risings are Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance and Lady Gaga. I think Lady Gaga is a beautiful example. She's actually an Aries sun with a Scorpio moon and a Gemini rising. So you share two of your top three with Lady Gaga. Yeah, so that fiery passion of her Aries sun, you know, and just being a performer in general. So she really is like the poster child of that ability to transform. I mean, there's even a period of time, I don't know how into Gaga you are, but there's a period of time where she was dressing as a man. She had a drag king persona, and she like went to award shows dressed as him, you know, and then her whole jazz era, and of course like her early stuff, and now whatever she's doing, like there are many faces to how Gaga presents to the world, right? So yeah, changeable like physical features and identity. That's a part of Gemini risings. So let's talk about your Mercury and Taurus in the 12th house. Mercury and Taurus is a little bit challenging because, see, the thing is, you want to say things exactly right. You want to say them slow and perfect and enunciated, and you want to get this point across. But you do also have all that Gemini energy, so that's already going to be a polarity. But Mercury and Taurus wants to say everything correctly, like, and you want to, you know, Taurus is Venus ruled, so, you know, being in a Mercury sign, it means that you want it, like, saying everything perfectly doesn't necessarily mean like correct, you know, it's not analytical, although it can be. It's more like it has to be beautiful, you know, and not always poetic because it's an earth sign, but there's just this certain energy to having Mercury and Taurus where you probably prefer to write things out as opposed to talking, because you'll get frustrated if you're not saying things exactly how you want to say them. But yeah, generally when you have an Earth Mercury, you speak a little bit slower. You like to plan out what you're gonna say. You know, I would guess that like you write up what you're gonna say on your TikToks. You know, some or most of the time. You're a very good secret keeper because it's in the 12th house, very good secret keeper. And you also never reveal 100% of the truth, right? So Taurus has this very like structured way it wants to speak, and being in the 12th house, it's also going to just be like, never going to share the full picture with people. Being in the 12th house, you're probably going to be more inclined to want to have deep conversations as well. Just because the 12th house is quite deep, dark, and expansive, not completely rooted in reality, or at least in the 3D world. So big conversations about big topics, and over a long period of time, you know, that's going to be what you're more interested in. So then you've got Venus in Cancer in the 2nd house. Your chart is on my second monitor over here. So Venus in Cancer, we want to nurture other people. Like, that is how we show love. It is through nurturing others. You know, my friend was dating a Cancer Venus one time, and did I say Mercury in Cancer? My brain told me that I did. I'm not sure if I did, but Cancer Venus. You have a Cancer Venus. Your Mercury's in Taurus. Cancer Venus in the 2nd. Okay. All I was going to say before is that he would put out like cones on the street so she would have a parking spot, and I can't remember what else he did. That's the only one I can remember, but yes, he was very tender and wanted to like nurture and take care of her. You know, that's how you show love. That's also what you value in yourself and in other people, being able to really care for others through emotional nurturing. Being that it's in the second house, you could probably get a little possessive in your romantic relationships. The second house is possessions as well as money, as well as self-esteem. So, you know, all those things are tied up in your value system because Venus is what we value. So you value nurturing. You also value probably sentimental objects. We will be talking about Cancer in a second. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but yes, it is what you value. You also probably value romantic partnership as well. And probably in your past, you know, part of your self-worth was tied up into romantic relationships. You know, whether you were in one or not was a part of like your self-esteem. So let's talk about Mars. You've got Mars and Gemini in the 12th house. That's a fun one. So a 12th house Mars, usually we have secret ambitions. Like we have these high goals, but we're not going to share them with everyone, right? That's something we're going to keep between you and me. It could mean you're also very passionate about your own spiritual evolution, really passionate about exploring the depths of your soul. You know, ego death can happen when we have Mars in the 12th house. Like that's something that can happen throughout our lives, because you're just searching and trying to learn, especially with Gemini, a Gemini Mars in the 12th house, because you're curious, you want to explore. It actually adds like a nice bit of levity to what can be a dark house for the Mars placement to be in. So secret ambitions, you want to do everything, you want to know everything. You know, Mars is our drive. It's that fire, it's that passion we have. It's how we work and we move through life. And so you're probably constantly spinning multiple plates at a time. You love to learn, you love to explore, you love to communicate, you love to explore your own dark depths. You have a lot of dreams and goals. You have a lot of things you want to do in this lifetime, and you're not exactly one to, you know, stand on the soapbox and tell everyone that those are the things you want to do. So you have Jupiter in Sagittarius. Okay, so Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are all retrograde. This happens because Jupiter's retrograde every year for like 5 months, and the rest of them are retrograde for about 6 months. So it's very common, you know, for someone to be born in that time frame when they are all retrograde. It happens once a year, right? People are always, you know, on the internet like, oh no, retrogrades are happening. Oh, but good news for you, right now, there's no retrogrades. And that's actually not the best time for you. In fact, this summer, when all these planets are retrograde at the same time, that's going to be a good time for you, because that's your home energy. That's what you were born under. That's what makes you feel like good, natural, normal. So anytime you see someone saying, Jupiter is going to be stationing retrograde soon, here's how to prepare. You know, Pluto retrograde's happening, it's going to shake up your life, you know. No, you don't have to listen to those because they're just not going to be true for you, you know. It's like people who are born under Mercury retrograde tend to have things go really well during Mercury retrograde. So it can kind of be like a reverse. I haven't done enough reflection in my own life. I don't feel I have Jupiter retrograde as well. I don't feel a huge difference between Jupiter being retrograde and Jupiter being direct. But, you know, because these ones, see, the thing is with these outer planets as well, when they are retrograde, they're retrograde for so long that, like, Mercury has to pack it all in like 2 weeks. So and Mercury's a trickster god. So they're just gonna fuck with you for fun, you know? I don't know if you've ever watched Adventure Time, but the character Magic Man is very like Mercury trickster god energy in my opinion. But these ones are retrograde for so long that like they take a long time to open up and really show you these lessons, guide you towards these new things. So, you know, take that information as you will. Basically, just don't listen to the fear mongering when you if you see it on the internet around these outer planet retrogrades, because you're going to feel good. You're going to feel wonderful when these planets are retrograde. So Jupiter in Sagittarius retrograde, 6th house. A lot of keywords there. So Jupiter, expansion. It's how we open doors in our lives. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, so it feels nice and comfy here as your Jupiter sign. Now it's retrograde. What that means is you feel like you have to work really hard to gain success in your life. You struggle to accept things that are handed to you if you haven't worked towards it as well. So gotta work on that reframe. Things can come to you. You can take those opportunities and say, yes, thank you, I will do that. Even when you feel like you haven't worked towards it. You still deserve it. Okay, so you believe in hard work. Yes, I already said that. Okay. You're a natural teacher. Sagittarius is the teacher, the preacher, the explorer. But the thing is, like, Sagittarius wants to go out and learn about the world, either through travel, philosophy, religion, spirituality, like very into just these like really big topics. And Sagittarius is the archetype to want to spend like a year in India, in ashram, and then, spend a year studying Greek philosophers, so really diving all in, but not devoting their entire life, not hitching their wagon just to one belief, right? So it's really about like expanding your mind. The thing is though, Sagittarius wants to tell you about it. It's not just for themselves. They get jazzed, they get excited. So that's why they're natural teachers, because they want to learn and their interest in learning is insatiable. But then they also want to tell you about it. So being a teacher in some way, shape, or form, expanding your mind in many forms, those are how new doors are open in your life. That's how you really expand your life outward. Structure is also good, and inviting these kinds of things into your everyday practices, whether that means, having a philosophy or, a book on Buddhism to read every day, making it part of your routine, making it part of your habits, or something else, that's similar to that. But the 6th house adds structure and routine to your day-to-day life. And so this is about being a teacher and being an explorer of the world every day. That's how you open up new doors for you. And seeing as you do have Jupiter retrograde, you're gonna have the discipline. I too have my Jupiter's in Leo retrograde, 6th house, so I've got a similar energy as well. But yeah, it is about showing up every day and working hard. You do still have to work hard, but I found it is about accepting good things even when you haven't worked towards them. Just being like, yes, I will take that opportunity. Yeah, thank you. Even before it's handed to you, if there's an opportunity and you're like, that could be me, I could do that. Just be like, hi, yeah, I will take that, thank you. Saturn. Okay, you've got Saturn in Libra retrograde, 5th house. Now, for Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, these planets stay in a sign for a long time. Saturn stays in a sign for 2.5 years. Pluto stays in a sign for up to 32 years. So they're generational, right? And you're right there on that millennial Gen X cusp. 1983 is the cusp. So you were born when Pluto was in Libra because it was retrograde. What degree is it at? Yeah, wait, no, wrong one. Okay, 26 degrees. Yeah, so you're right there on that cusp. I haven't run my brother's birth chart in a hot minute, but he has to have his Pluto in Libra as well, I guess, because he's October of 1983. Anyway, you're right there on that liminal space, but you do technically have Pluto in Libra, which is more greatly associated with Generation X. But that's all to say, these are generational planets, so the signs they're in affect larger groups of people as opposed to the individual personality. So when doing a natal chart reading, we look more so at the house they're in to understand how you specifically are working with this energy and how it shows up in you as a person. So Saturn in Libra First off, I mean, you were born at this time, which means that like a lot of other people experienced, you were born at this time. I didn't need to say that. A lot of other people experienced Libra, Sag, Libra for their outer planets. And I think that's very indicative of, you know, people that are like around your age, but also a bit older, just because like Generation X just didn't want to get like involved, you know? And Libra doesn't want to get involved. Wants to watch, maybe make a few comments, but definitely not get involved in whatever debacles are going on. But having a Saturn retrograde is all about really struggling with structures, really struggling with, you know, the imposed structures on us. So as a child, going up through the American public shit, I mean, even the private school system, they're not that different. It just felt really wrong for you. It felt like I found that people with Saturn retrograde in their chart, it doesn't matter if they were a good student or not, like they really struggled with the structure of school and this rigidity of life, and you do this and you get on the line, you do, like it's not good. I mean, it's not good, it doesn't feel right. But I always say that people with all their outer planets retrograde, those are the people that, you know, were born to change the rules. You know, they were born to rewrite the rules, you know, break the structures. And so, yeah, when you've got Saturn retrograde, you don't fit into the boxes. Maybe you do fit into the boxes, but you fucking hate the boxes. So it's in the 5th house. So during your first Saturn return, which is a few years ago, when Saturn was in Libra, that's when you really learned how to let yourself have fun. Like having fun and bringing joy into your life is a structure that you need. It's something you take seriously, because Saturn is structures, it is restrictions, and so that probably means that before your Saturn return, you really struggled to allow yourself to have fun, to enjoy things. And you know, it's worth just hopping over to Pluto right now, because Pluto's also in Libra, retrograde in the 5th house. They're pretty close together as well. Looks like they're only 2 degrees apart, so they're conjunct, your Saturn and Pluto. Pluto is where we can obsess. It's where we obsess. And when we've got Pluto retrograde, here's the big kicker with Pluto retrograde. You're very afraid of being manipulated by other people, you know? And whether you actually are or not is dependent on, you know, the home life you grew up, the friends you make, you know? So for some people it's just in their head, and for some people it's like, no, there's plenty, people are really trying to control and manipulate me in my life. But either way, it's there, that fear of being controlled and manipulated by other people. And so what you do in retaliation to try and prevent yourself from, you know, being a puppet to someone else is you actually turn around and do it to other people. So there is this fear of being manipulated, and sometimes from that fear, you then become the manipulator. So Pluto retrograde is, there's a lesson having that in your chart for sure. But having it in the 5th house as well, this usually points towards, you know, just having to look out for abusing substances, you know, using sex to cover up the deeper, darker feelings that you have. Yeah, so it's interesting because with the Pluto, it's like, okay, there's some information here that maybe points towards overdoing it, you know, with drugs and alcohol. But then with Saturn, it's about learning like how to restrict and also allow yourself the full experience of enjoying the things that you enjoy, like making room for deep, beautiful pleasure in your life while also restricting the things maybe that are happening in that Pluto arena, so that you're not overdoing it to the point of hurting yourself, right? So it's about this balance, this, you know, this need to experience pleasure and fun and you know, mind-altering stuff, but also being able to put the restrictions on it that are healthy and responsible for you, and making a commitment to yourself to enjoy life in a different way. That's what I see going on there. So then we've got Uranus and Neptune. They're always close together. They always are. I mean, for a long time they were close together, right? 80s and 90s, they were close. Sorry, looking at your chart, because I was like, that's Uranus and Jupiter, but you have your Jupiter in Sagittarius. So your Jupiter and Uranus are actually 2 degrees apart, and your Neptune's way over here at the end of Sagittarius. Okay, so it took a couple years until Uranus actually caught up to Neptune. Okay, so let's talk about Uranus first, since it is so close to your Jupiter. So once again, they're having this relationship like your Saturn and Pluto. Saturn and Pluto also love to be in a relationship with one another. I mean, Saturn has long loved the underworld, and so getting to hang out with, the king of the underworld, it's good fun for him. But they can, it's like they can get themselves into trouble. They can. But Jupiter and Uranus, I think those two being together is really nice, because Uranus can be about revelations. Uranus is about abrupt changes, which can sometimes be very jarring, and sometimes revelations bring on things that are very jarring. Suddenly you wake up and you're like, oh, I shouldn't be in this relationship. I'm just doing it because of X, Y, and Z. And that can be quite jarring to go through as well. But revelations, even when I was writing up the notes, I felt more called to the idea of revelations. And it makes sense because it is next to Jupiter, and Jupiter is like optimistic, right? And so these are good. It's going to be more inspired with these two next to each other. So Uranus is in Sagittarius in the 6th house, right? Right next to your Jupiter in Sagittarius in the 6th house. So it's retrograde, which means that you feel like you're just different. These are people who tend to feel like they're not from here, and whether that was a feeling growing up, like the town you lived in, you were just like, I'm not from here. Or if you just feel like you're an alien and you're like, Earth, I'm not from here. No. Having Uranus retrograde in your chart can also mean that you have a fear of innovation or a fear of technology, fear of like robots and microchips and stuff like that. That could just be a deeply rooted fear that you have. Okay, so your work and life routines are prone to change, and revelations being next to that Jupiter in Sagittarius, which is about being a natural teacher, explorer of the world, needing to explore and learn and teach every day of your life, having that be a part of your day-to-day structure. Your structures are liable to change often. They're going to change often because you're going to have these revelations. You're going to read this book. You're going to experience this thing. You're going to listen to a talk, or just be, washing the dishes and you're like, oh, there we go. So rigid structure is not what you need. You need structure that is always liable to change, right? So that you can get the most out of your day, and whatever the most out of your day means is going to be different from you to me to someone else, okay? So it's not about being like the most productive, right? Your Neptune is in Sagittarius, retrograde, but it's in the 7th house, so it's just at the very end of Sagittarius, the 28th degree. So Neptune retrograde means that we tend to keep our more spiritual, woo-woo, wackadoodle beliefs to ourselves. Like, we don't really want to just scream it from the mountaintops, that we believe in reincarnation or whatever it might be. You like to keep that stuff to yourself. But yeah, having Neptune in 7th house makes you very romantic and dreamy. It means you can also, really see the good in a person, which is great, but sometimes to your own detriment, because Neptune is kind of like a fog, And so having Neptune in the 7th house of serious partnerships, it means that you can be in that la fog sometimes, which can be like, you know, just a little bit delusional sometimes in relationships, just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Sagittarius Neptune is fun because they're just both like very creative, working together, like very creative. You know, this is where we find our creative talent, our spiritual talent. So Sagittarius definitely adds more of the spiritual and the more like intellectual side of spiritualism, you know, the learning, right? Sagittarius is a big dork, but it's a big, the archetype is a big dork who wants to experience the whole wide world. As far as art goes, when it comes to Sagittarius, how do I feel about that? It is inconjunct to your Venus. So, okay, getting distracted, that's okay. Writing could be one form of art, but also just like dancing, moving, you know, just like experiencing your body. Okay. We're going to talk about Chiron, the North Node and South Node, Juno and Lilith. So these are lesser placements, but because they're not planets, but we love them. First one we're diving into is Chiron. Don't know if you've heard of Chiron before. It's a pretty popular astral body to work with at this point in time, so you might have. But Chiron is the wounded healer. So Chiron, in Greek mythology, was an immortal centaur, and he got hit with an immortal arrow, you know, from the gods, and so it left an immortal wound. And what that meant is he couldn't die, and that wound could never heal. And so he went all around the world learning about healing and became the master healer of the world. I think Hercules eventually healed him or let him die. They figured out a way for him to die. Perhaps, I can't remember exactly, but what the asteroid Chiron tells us about is our deepest, darkest wound, one we will carry with us for our whole life, but it's also one we're going to become really skilled at healing at the same time. Like, it's never going to go away, right? Chiron's never went away, but Chiron's ability to heal was amazing. And so that's what this is about, continuing to learn how to heal that wound that you have. So yours is in Taurus in the 12th house. And yeah, this is the fear of not having enough, never having enough stuff, you know, never having that safety and security. It's also the fear of not being enough, you know, never being enough for someone else, for yourself, for your job, never having enough to have the house you want, the car you want, the life you want, you know? So it's fear of not having, deep fear of not having. So, you know, really searching your soul for deep satisfaction, you know, because we can look to the opposite sign to see what kind of energy Scorpio gives us in the 6th house. This is about, you know, every day just working towards knowing yourself better and understanding your own power every day, right? So next we're going to talk about the North Node and South Node. So the nodes are theoretical points. They're mathematical points. And they're always in opposition to one another. The South Node is old karma stuff. The North Node is the progression of the soul. So in less spiritual terms, childish bad habits and your potential. So South Node, a bit of a neg, so we're going to start with the South Node. It's in Sagittarius in the 7th house. So this is about running away from relationships, running from relationship to relationship, having to be the smartest person, having to get the last word. Yeah, I mean, Sagittarius as a South Node placement is about running. It's about running away. It's about, you know, just being like smarter, and holier than thou, you know? And so North Node is in Gemini in the first house placement, what's up? It's right under your ascendant. Looks like they're 3 degrees apart. So very close together. You have the North Node rising in your chart, which is great because that means, I mean, that's just like easier to work with because, you know, the North Node being like a goal in life, you know, the progression of your life, the story arc of your life, it's in your first house, the house of identity, self. So, you know, this is about really exploring yourself, developing all sides of your personality. This is about, just fully expressing who you are. It's about moving less from other people and more into you, you know? And less about being holier than thou and more about just being curious about who you are, what your worldview is, what you're interested in today, who you are today, you know, and just having like a levity and just being excited to be you, right? That's the progression of your life. I do think having a first house North Node in general is a little bit easier than having your North Node in other places because it's you. I mean, what's the one thing you can control? Yourself. I mean, that being said, it's still it's incredibly hard to learn to control yourself, but that is at the end of the day all you can do. So it's you. You got it. It's you. Okay. We're going to talk about Juno next. Juno is the marriage asteroid. So after all that, now we're going to talk about what this asteroid has to say about who you will marry. Now, of course, you don't have to marry. I don't know your life, but I'm going to throw it in anyway. You have Juno in Aries in the 11th house. It's a little bit farther away from your moon. They're not super close. But you need someone, or if you do get married, it will be someone who is passionate, independent, and someone who's in your community or who will introduce you to more people, you know, open up a new community for you. You'll gain a new friend group. But yeah, definitely a very passionate, excited relationship where you are two very separate people. Like you're not even merged into one person. You are your separate identities, but you have this community kind of relationship where your friends are his friends are your friends. You're part of each other's communities. Okay, Lilith is how we control the situation. If Mars is war, like the battle, the blood, all that, the sweat, the dirt, that's Mars. Lilith is the chess game, you know? She is the war games, the plan, the strategy. Like she's the general, you know? And Mars is everyone actually fighting. And so this is how we move the chess pieces of our life. It's how we gain control. It's how we gain power. It can be used for good. It can be used for bad. So here's Lilith. She's in Aquarius in the 9th house. So you gain control by thinking 3 steps ahead. You think 3 steps ahead because Aquarius is always looking to the future. You're always trying to innovate, do things differently. That's how you control the situation, by thinking farther ahead than other people are. And arming yourself with a lot of information, right? So your smarts. Yeah, that is how you control the situation. Your smarts, because Aquarius is smart. The 9th house is also quite smart. It is about personal beliefs and life philosophies, so you can talk about topics that are huge, and you can do so in a way that other people can't. So you can control situations by being the smartest person in the room. There we go. It came up again, that phrase. So now we're going to move it to your house system. So each of the 12 houses in your chart govern a different area of your life. And so the houses, when working at the placements, add like a flavor, give us a little bit more information about that placement, but the houses themselves give us information about your life. So 2nd house is ruled by Cancer. This is the house of money, possessions, self-worth. So Cancer rules the 2nd house, which means that you like to hold on to things. You have like a very emotional attachment to possessions, like the memory. If something has a memory, you're going to want to hold on to that. Cancer is also very good at saving money, traditionally very good at saving money, prefers to spend money on other people, you know, as like gifts, presents, and stuff for their house, you know, like Cancers they're crabs. You can think of the hermit crab, you know, they have their little home that they carry with them everywhere. Home is very important to Cancers. So buying things for your home is very important. And as far as like your own self-esteem goes, you feel better about yourself when you're taking care of other people. Third house is our thoughts. It's the quality of our thoughts. It's how we process our thoughts. So Leo rules the third house for you. So your thoughts can sometimes be a little egoic. Your pride is what is on your mind a lot of the times. Having Leo rule the third house adds a dramatic flair to the way you think and the way you talk. Fourth house is the house of early childhood, our relationship to family, our relationship to one or both of our parents. And we can also find childhood trauma in the fourth house, whether it's capital T trauma or lowercase t trauma. I'm not sure. Sometimes I can tell. I mean, it's just like if Pisces or Scorpio rules the fourth house, it's usually capital T trauma. But yours is intercepted. So Leo actually rules the fourth house as well, but hiding out in your fourth house is Virgo. So it just hides out in your fourth house because your fifth house is ruled by Libra. So fourth house is ruled by Leo, skips over Virgo. Fifth house ruled by Libra. Virgo just hides out in that house. So Pisces hides out in your 10th house as well. And these are important houses. There's two axes. So the horizontal is the first and the 7th house, and the vertical is the 4th and the 10th house. Horizontal, I think you've understood at this point, but the first house is about the self, 7th house is about others. So it's that, it's me and them. That's what we're seeing here. Whereas 4th house is family and childhood, 10th house is public appearance. So it's like home, everyone else. So they're very important axes. And your 4th and 10th are intercepted. There's some belief that interceptions happen due to, or I guess they can predict, issues in early childhood, parents or guardians kind of forcing you to not be who you really are, right? Because there's a hidden aspect to these houses. So with Leo ruling your 4th house, it means that your home life seemed very fun, and maybe one or both of your parents were performers. Maybe they pushed you to be a performer, but like a very, just like flashy, beautiful, fun kind of relationship to family and home in early childhood. But with Virgo intercepted, it means that there's probably a certain facade that your family put on for the world. Like, oh, we're so fun, we're so loving, blah. But actually, your parents and your childhood was very strict. Probably had very critical parents, that just didn't let you fucking live. But there was this facade of being fun and yay, we have such a good time. And, maybe you still did have a lot of fun in your household, but there is this energy of being criticized by your parents or guardians or, adults that were around in early childhood. 5th house is ruled by Libra, and this is the house of pleasure. It's the house of fun, baby, right? So we've talked about 5th house and Libra quite a bit, but relationships bring you joy and they make you feel alive, having healthy, happy relationships with people where they're balanced, like that's the joy of life for you. 6th house is ruled by Scorpio. Right, okay. I knew there's something with Scorpio that I really enjoyed, because Scorpio is the death card in tarot, and 6th house is health and habits and day-to-day stuff, so it tends to be our day-to-day work that we do. So I just like that, you are a death doula and Scorpio rules your 6th house. You can have a very intense relationship to health and habits and work Like you can definitely grow a very intense attachment to it, spend a lot of time thinking about it, really overexert yourself. Yeah, Scorpio is intense on a soul level, so this intense relationship to health and habits and work. What else was I going to say? I had something else to say. I'm going to take a sip of water. Well, I was just going to say that as far as health goes, the health of your mind, you know, like psychological health is probably what's most important. So 7th house is ruled by Sagittarius. This is what we look for in other people, specifically serious partnerships. The 7th house is like marriage partners, business partners. So we're talking like serious commitments. The law is probably involved, you know? So you like people that are smart and independent, adaptable, and have a different background than you. You know, you're probably going to be more interested in partnering with people who are from a different state, a different country, a different age group, like a different gender identity, a different sexual orientation. Like you're just more interested in experiencing what it is to partner with people that aren't, you know, very similar to you. 8th house is ruled by Aquarius. I skipped ahead. 8th house is ruled by Capricorn. So you don't like authority, probably specifically don't like male-dominated authority. It's just been this little voice in your head that's always like, I could do this better than you. And not in a prideful kind of way, just in like I could do this better than you. You know, so very anti-authority with Capricorn ruling the 8th house. You do transform your life through owning it. Like Capricorn is the boss. And so just like fucking owning you, your life, your authority, your responsibilities. It is possible to inherit something from the father. And that could be mental illness. It could be, you know, there's a lot of things we can inherit from the father. It could be land or property or money, but sometimes it could just be like the genes we inherit from our father being more like your father. You know, that can happen with the 8th house being ruled by Capricorn. 9th house is ruled by Aquarius, so this is our life's beliefs and personal philosophies. It's like our value system. So Aquarius in the 9th house, that means social justice is your value. Like humanitarianism, bettering the world at large. Communities are important to you. Societal improvement, like of humans, like let's make the world better, forward innovation. Those are the things that you believe in. That's what you believe in. Okay. 10th house is ruled by Aquarius. So once again, 10th house ruled by Aquarius. Pisces hides inside of it, and your 11th house is ruled by Aries. So 10th house being ruled by Aquarius, this is how other people perceive you. It also tends to point towards career. I do believe that it only points towards career because at this point in time, when you meet someone new, what's one of the first things they ask you? What do you do for work? And so that tends to be the impression we leave on other people is what we do for work. So I think maybe in like 100 years or so, maybe longer, it won't be as career focused. But I digress. People see you as nerdy and intelligent, humanitarianism, a little weird, but in like the most lovable kind of way, because people do really like Aquarius energy, but Aquarius is also weird, but like weird on purpose. Cool weird, right? So people see that. You know, working with technology, working with, you know, the internet, working with astrology is one of the things that Aquarius rules over, working to help other people, working for a nonprofit. Those are all very Aquarian careers. Now, Pisces hangs out in there, so people see you as Aquarius. And they might not be as cognizant of the Piscean stuff. The Piscean stuff probably relates more so to your career. And so this has to do with working with other realities. Pisces is connected to other realities. And so what I mean, two good examples are film and TV, because that's not reality, that's another reality that we watch through stories, right? Prison. prisons are under Neptune, Pisces rule, because that's a false reality too. That's not this reality, but that's their reality, but that's not like the reality. And Pisces energy can feel like a prison at times, you know? So I do think this is interesting, because the reality that you work in is quite different than the reality that a lot of us live in, because people don't want to talk about death, you know? We completely shun it in this society, and you like fully live in that world. And I see it. I see it with Pisces ruling, not ruling, but hiding out in your 10th house, that there is this hidden element of like, yeah, you see me as this, but really it's just this whole other world that I live in, or, you know, that you exist in, that you have knowledge in, that you work in. Your 11th house is ruled by Aries, so you're very independent. You like people that are also independent, you know, that aren't needy, that don't need to text you 100 times a day, you know, that don't need you to babysit them on a night out, you know, like you want people who can take care of their own shit. And if they're like, hey, I'm gonna go jump on the back of that motorcycle, you're like, great, wear a helmet. You like go-getters, you like daredevils. You know, sometimes with Aries in the 11th house, I feel like it points towards someone who doesn't really settle into one community. And maybe that's true for you. Maybe you're a part of a lot of different communities. But yeah, because Aries is so independent, and the 11th house is really about how interconnected we are. So it is an interesting blending of energies. 12th house is ruled by Taurus. So, you know, 12th house, a lot of times it rules over the things that we fear. We can also find past life experiences here, psychic abilities here. So with Taurus in the 12th house, some of the things are secret eating, you know, having your eating habits be a secret, needing to eat alone, not wanting to eat in front of people, secret hoarding of goods, materials, and things. Taurus is very much connected to the tangible reality, things we can touch. You could also at times not feel very anchored to your life. You can feel like you're constantly in lack, like you need things. Yeah. A couple more things to talk about. So your chart, there are aspects, okay? So, you know, I was talking about how Pluto and Saturn are 2 degrees apart, and Uranus and Jupiter are 2 degrees apart. Those are conjunctions, okay? Because they're close together, they're creating a conjunction. So like, right, your Sun and your Mars are 1 degree apart. If that, okay, Sun's 14, Mars is, 13. They're very close together. Having Mars conjunct your Sun and an Aries moon, I can only imagine how intense you can be. That's fun. That's fun. So we're going to talk about the other things now. So you have a lot of inconjuncts. They almost make a, you know, like one of these stars, like a pentagram, right? That you draw out like that. They almost make one of those shapes. I wish they did. It'd be so fucking tight if you had a pentagram in the middle of your chart. But it's so close that it really looks like a pentagram anyway. So inconjuncts are 2 planets that just don't speak the same language. Like they are trying to work together, but they literally don't know how to solve the problem. They don't know how to do the thing because they just can't understand each other. So inconjuncts, you've got quite a few of them. That's confusing, because then you've got these energies inside of you where you're like, I don't know how to harmonize them, because they're just they have very dissonant qualities of one another. So for instance, your Venus creates an inconjunct with Neptune and your midheaven. So your love life and the things you value can sometimes be really confusing when it comes to your career, like your career, your public appearance, and your value system. Sometimes they don't understand each other. So you also have a lot of trines, quite a few sextiles, and just a few squares. So we're going to start with the tightest aspects. So the ones that are at 0 or 1 degree. From being exact, because when it comes to aspects, like inconjunct, that's 150 degrees apart, squares are 90, trines are 120. So there's like liminal space here. If they're like 123 degrees apart, that's a trine, but with an orb of 3, meaning that it's 3 away from the exact. So we're only doing the tightest ones. So these ones are gonna be most prominent, though you will feel them all, but we don't have time to go through every single one of them. I'm already at an hour. Okay, Neptune sextile your midheaven. So Neptune and your midheaven are good at getting stuff done. They're good at working together, right? And so Neptune is intuitive, dreamy, and your midheaven, career and public appearance. So intuitive nudges are extremely important in your career, and so is creativity. So like, it's really this balance of, because you do have that Aquarius energy ruling your 10th house, even though Pisces hangs out in there, trusting your nudges, trusting your creativity, trusting your inner voice is a very important part of your career. You've also got Saturn sextile Neptune, so Saturn and Neptune like working together. So when you have a vision or a dream for your future, you are going to take your time to execute it exactly as you have it planned out in your head. Saturn rules over time. Neptune is the dream, but Saturn also likes to work hard. And so Neptune's got the dream and Saturn goes, I like that dream. I got a plan. It's going to take a year. Let's do it, you know? You also have a very strong belief in your abilities because, like, I mean, those are two rock stars working together. When Saturn and Neptune work together effectively, chef's kiss. Your Chiron is square your midheaven. So Chiron and your midheaven, they fight. They're opposing teams, you know, playing a game against one another, and they got to figure out how to play a good game, a good, clean game with one another. So your insecurities about yourself and your security, that's funny, using the word insecurity and security in a sentence. So like, you know, your insecurities about yourself and like your physical security, the things that you have insecurities around about those things. Okay, sentences, hopefully you understood what I was talking about. But this brings up roadblocks in your career, you know? Your wounds bring up roadblocks in your career, but the thing about squares is they're not just there to fuck with you. A square comes because it's like, no, you need to learn how to work with these energies. And so it's like, no, you really do need to continuously work to heal yourself, to feel safe and secure and like you can handle things and that you have everything that you need at your disposal. You need that so you can continue to work towards your career. You've got Saturn trine your midheaven, so lots of things creating aspects with your midheaven. Saturn trine your midheaven. This trines energy flows really easily. You actually have a lot of trines in your chart. So while there are some, you know, challenging things in your chart, when you have a lot of trines, it means things just generally work out. Things just generally work out. And luckily, with the inconjuncts, which actually, I mean, we'll talk about it, they're yods, which is a specific thing. We'll go over it briefly at the end, but you have enough stuff in your chart that adds a bit of adversity, because if it was like all trines, everything just comes easily to you. Well, it's no fun. Okay, so Saturn trine the midheaven. The more you lean into the joy and creativity of your career, the more it progresses. So this also promises success later in life, because it's just about learning to really enjoy what you do and be creative with what you do. And that just takes a little bit of time. So that's, you know, usually you're not right out the gates at fresh 22 and successful. It just takes time to get there. So you've got Lilith sextile Juno. So Lilith, power and control. She's a dark, sexy bitch. And then Juno, marriage, you know. I was going to say virginal, but it's not. It's just like, you know, pure. I don't know. That doesn't work either. But, you know, Juno and Lilith, they're same, but different, right? And they like working together in your chart, so that's fun. So I'd say that wearing the pants suits you best, and that you also really need a freaky partner. Sex and power are a very fun aspect of your future marriage, you know. And wearing the pants doesn't mean being in charge, really. That can be a very balanced thing, but there is this aspect of, I don't know, there's an aspect of sex and control that works really well in your potential future marriage. I mean, I don't know your love life. Maybe you are married. You've got Venus sextile Chiron. So Venus and Chiron like working together. That's good. You're very good at seeing and taking care of other people's wounds. Like you can instantly pick up on people when they are hurting. Like you just notice it, you know, pain recognize pain, baby. Serious mama bear energy with this one. And then you've got Venus square Saturn. Okay, so this one's a little bit of a downer. Sometimes I like write them all out and then I get to the bottom one and I'm like, wish this one wasn't last, but we're gonna talk about yachts a little bit. So Venus square Saturn is honestly very challenging. It's like love or career. This is about not wanting to or seeing the value in closed or committed relationships. Putting restrictions on your own joy can happen. And we've seen that in other parts of your chart as well. There's this delicate balance between experiencing joy and life and pleasure and putting restrictions on it. You know, you got to find that balance that works for you. Squares are intense energy, but it doesn't always have to be bad. So the key to overcoming this obstacle is self-love. Like, it's challenging, it's hard, but if you lean into working on this lesson, your love for yourself and your ability to know what's best for you is gonna skyrocket as time goes on. Okay, so you've got 2 grand trines, yep. But I want to talk about the yods. You have 4 yods in your chart, which is why we kind of have that pentagram in the middle. So a yod is 2 planets that are sextile, so they like working together, pointing towards one planet that they are both in conjunct from. So these 2 planets that like working together don't know how to speak to that one. And actually, you know, focusing, because it creates this isosceles triangle. they think, no, it's an acute. It's an acute triangle because all of the angles are less than 90. Yeah, okay, it's an acute triangle. And so the one pointing outward, that's the driving force here. So those 2 work well together. They need to follow and learn how to work with that one. So your midheaven and your Neptune are being guided by your Venus, but they need to learn how to work with your Venus. So, you know, your Neptune's in the 6th house, right? Or is it in the 7th? Okay, yeah, so relationships and midheaven being career, being guided by your Venus. And so just bringing it back towards nurturing, you know, knowing that at the end of the day is what you are here to do. Nurture yourself, reparent yourself if that feels good, and nurture others. You also have Chiron sextile your moon, and the pointer planet is Saturn. And so this is about deep emotional healing and learning to take it very seriously and learning to put certain restrictions on yourself and your life that will actually facilitate emotional healing. So then we've got Chiron creating a sextile now with Venus, so those 2 work together well, being pulled forward by Neptune. So your wound, your Chiron wound, and your Venus work well together, right? You're good at being able to see other people's pain and knowing how to take care of them. That you're being pulled forward, though, by your own relationship to spirituality, creativity, And spirituality, I want to be clear, is a huge bucket term, umbrella term for you, especially because you have so much Sagittarius stuff in your chart. Spirituality underneath it is any kind of religion, any kind of spiritual belief or practice, but also philosophy and psychology, because spirituality is completely tied up in psychology at this point in time anyway. So, you know, it doesn't have to be like the most woo, but just like that big belief system. Exploring that is really what's going to help you to help people. So then this yod has multiple that are involved because Neptune now is sextiling both your Saturn and Pluto in Libra. They're being pulled forward by your Chiron. So Neptune, Saturn, and Pluto all working together. That's about like very intense drive to bring your dreams and goals and your visions to fruition. But your Chiron is like, hey, I know we want to make all those dreams come true, but you gotta follow me. You gotta work on this shit. I gotta feel good. I gotta feel safe. I gotta feel secure in this world, in this body, before we can really succeed in this life. So yeah, you have a beautiful chart. Thank you for letting me look at it and tell you about it.